Hey everybody, and welcome to Get Out YouTube channel. Today we're going to be discussing and picking the games I think the teams are going to win. This is week 4 of the College Football 2001. Okay, you have Marshall versus App State. I'm going with Marshall. Then you have Middle Tennessee versus Charlotte 49ers. Going with Charlotte 49ers. Then you have Wake Forest versus Virginia. I'm going with Virginia. Liberty Flames versus Syracuse. I'm going with Liberty. Then you have the UNLV Rebels versus Fresno State. I'm going with Fresno State. Then you have Hampshire Wildcats versus Pittsburgh. I'm going with Pittsburgh. Bowling Green versus Minnesota. I'm going with Minnesota. Ohio Bobcats versus Northwestern Wildcats. I'm going with Northwestern. Villanova versus Penn State. I'm going with Penn State on this one. Boise State versus Utah State. I'm going with Utah State. Miami, Ohio versus the Army. I'm going with the Army. Bristol Spiders versus Virginia Tech. I'm going with Virginia Tech. SMU versus TCU. I'm going with SMU. Now a really good game, Notre Dame versus Wisconsin. This is going to be a very interesting for me because Wisconsin did not play last weekend. Not really sure on this one. I have to come back to that one. And I would say Notre Dame on this one, but it could go either way because Wisconsin had a chance to Wisconsin's had enough time to prepare. I want to say Notre Dame on this one, but it could go either way. Yes, I want to say it could go either way. Go either way on that one. Let's see, I lost track of where I messed a button. I messed it up. There we go. Texas Tech at Texas. I'm gonna go with Texas Tech. And then you have LSU versus Mississippi State. I'm gonna go with Mississippi State. You have Florida International versus Central Michigan. Two very bad teams. They're both 1 and 2. I guess I'll go with Michigan, Central Michigan. Missouri versus Boston College. I'm going with Boston College. Georgia Bulldogs, the one that beat South Carolina last week, versus Vanderbilt. I guess I'm going to go with Georgia on this one. The Wagner Seahawks versus Temple. I'm going to go with Temple. Central Connecticut versus Miami, Florida Hurricanes. Miami, Florida Hurricanes are not doing very good this year, but I'll pick Miami on this game. Massachusetts versus Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is 3-0. They beat Kansas, and they beat that other team. What was it called? Oh, Buffalo. Buffalo is a very athletic team. I'm gonna go with Coastal on this one. Texas State versus Eastern Michigan. Go with Eastern Michigan. Toledo versus Ball State. I'm gonna go with Ball State. San Jose State versus Western Michigan. A lot of Michigan teams. I'm gonna go with Western Michigan. Maine Black Bears versus Northern Illinois Huskies. Both are 1 and 2. Northern Illinois Huskies. We have Washington State versus Utah. I'm gonna go with Utah on this one. UTSA versus Memphis. I'm gonna go with Memphis. Memphis is a very good athletic team, I've heard. Wyoming versus Connecticut. I'm going with Wyoming. Colorado State versus Iowa. I'm going to go with Iowa. Rutgers versus Michigan. Michigan is 3-0. They're both 3-0. I'm going to go with Michigan. Louisville versus Florida State. I'm going with Louisville. Texas A&M versus Arkansas. I'm going with Texas A&M. Clemson versus North Carolina NC State. I'm going Clemson, but their O-line is pretty bad this year. They barely beat a Georgia Tech last week. They won 14-8. I don't know. I think Clemson is in big trouble. Their O-line is just not good this year. And you can tell. It's kind of the same thing as South Carolina's O-line. But I've never seen Clemson struggle so bad. Usually they don't win. They don't lose a game. Kent State versus Maryland. I'm gonna go with Maryland. Towson Tigers versus San Diego. I'm going with San Diego. Iowa State versus Baylor Bears. I'm going with Baylor Bears. Illinois versus Purdue. Go with Purdue. Georgia State versus Auburn Tigers. I'm going with Auburn. Kansas versus Duke Blue Devils. I'm going with Duke. Arkansas State versus Tulsa. I'm going with Arkansas State. Buffalo Bulls. That's that athletic team that Coastal played against. They go against Old Dominion. It shocked me that they lost to Coastal, but they didn't give up a fight against Coastal though. I'm gonna say Buffalo Bulls. Charleston Southern versus East Carolina. I'm gonna go with Charleston Southern. UCLA versus Stanford. I think one of them is lost school in it. I'm gonna go with Stanford. Louisiana Lafayette versus Georgia Southern. I'm going with Louisiana Lafayette. Texas Southern Tigers versus Rice. One is 0-2, one is 0-3. They both haven't won a game. I'm gonna go with Rice. Kansas State versus Oklahoma State. I'm gonna go with Oklahoma State. Northern Texas versus Louisiana Tech. I'm going to go with Louisiana Tech. Tennessee versus Florida. I'm going to go with Florida on this one. Florida almost, by a thread, almost beat Alabama. Nebraska versus Michigan State. I'm going with Michigan State. And here's some of these other ones. Kentucky versus South Carolina. I have a really good feeling South Carolina's going to win this one. I don't know why, but after losing to Georgia, Georgia's a very hard team to beat anyway, considering them being second in the country. We'll go with South Carolina. Navy versus Houston Cougars. I think Navy pulls this one off. Akron Zips versus Ohio State. I'm going to go with Ohio State. Southern Miss versus Alabama. Of course, Alabama. West Virginia versus Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. North Carolina versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech almost put an upset against Clemson. Clemson is struggling this year. I'm going to go with North Carolina on this one though. Hawaii versus New Mexico State. I'm going to go with Hawaii. UAB versus Tulane. I'm going to go with UAB. Indiana versus Western Kentucky. I'm going to go with Indiana. Florida Atlantic versus Air Force. I'm going with Air Force. Troy versus Louisiana Monroe. I'm going to go with Louisiana Monroe. New Mexico versus UTEP Miners. They're both 2-1. I'll go with UTEP. California Golden Bears versus Washington Huskies. I'm going to go with California Golden Bears. South Florida versus BYU. I'm going to go BYU. Oregon State Beavers versus USC Trojans. I'm going to go with USC Trojans. Arizona Cardinals Wildcats, versus Oregon Ducks. That's Oregon. Colorado versus Arizona State. I guess Arizona State on this one. That's a 10:30 game. Those last ones that I just read are really late games. And there you have it for week 3 of my picks of college football 2021. If you like this video, don't forget to like and share and subscribe. I also do a pick on for NFL also. I do think South Carolina can beat Kentucky. Yes, I do think that. You can always learn from a loss. Of course, I think this year is kind of an experiment to see what we do this year, because with the new coach and everything, you still have players from the Will Muschamp era, I'm sure, on the team, because Will Muschamp was horrible at recruiting. Let's just put it that much. We will have I think we will have a better team next year, because we have some five-star players coming in next year, and I do think it'll be much better next year. And Georgia is a very physical team too, by the way. Kentucky, they've been up and down, but it's amazing that Clemson has struggled against a Georgia Tech team that they usually blow out. Usually, everybody is seeing how Clemson is playing now, and they're changing their play calling. So